At 2:15 on New Year's Eve, I found my grandson unconscious on his bathroom floor. His continuous glucose monitor was screaming a critical low alarm. Through the heating vent, I could hear his wife downstairs leading a champagne countdown with her real estate colleagues. I knelt beside Ethan, called 911, and when the paramedics asked what happened, I said 4 words that would end his marriage and save his life. My name is Linda Morrison. I'm 67 years old, a retired pharmacist who spent 40 years working at Shoppers Drug Mart in Vancouver before moving to Toronto to be closer to family. I've filled thousands of prescriptions, counseled countless diabetics, and I thought I'd seen every possible medication error. But I never imagined I'd watch someone weaponize insulin against my own grandson. Let me take you back 18 months to when this nightmare began. Ethan is my daughter Rebecca's only son. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 7 years old. I remember that day at Sick Kids Hospital like it was yesterday. Rebecca was devastated, but Ethan, even at 7, was remarkably brave. He learned to check his blood sugar, count carbohydrates, calculate insulin doses. By the time he was 12, he was managing his condition better than most adults. At 29, Ethan was thriving. He worked as a graphic designer for a small agency in Toronto, had his own condo in Liberty Village, ran half marathons to raise money for JDRF. His A1C levels were excellent. His endocrinologist called him a model patient. Then he met Brooklyn Hayes at a diabetes research fundraiser in June of that year. Brooklyn was beautiful, tall, blonde, with the kind of confidence that fills a room. She worked for a high-end real estate brokerage, selling luxury condos to wealthy investors. She told Ethan she'd attended the fundraiser because her uncle had diabetes. She seemed fascinated by Ethan's story, asked intelligent questions about his condition, admired his dedication to staying healthy. They were engaged 4 months later. I'll be honest, the speed concerned me, but Ethan was radiant with happiness, and Brooklyn was charming to our entire family. She organized brunches, remembered birthdays, posted photos of her and Ethan with captions like, "My brave warrior," and "so proud of this man." At their engagement party in October, I pulled Ethan aside in my daughter's kitchen. "She makes you happy?" I asked, refilling my wine glass. "Grandma, she's incredible," he said, his eyes bright. "Do you know how hard it is to date with diabetes? Women hear chronic illness and run. Brooklyn doesn't see my diabetes as a burden. She wants to learn everything about it. She's already reading books about carb counting." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said carefully. "Just make sure she understands that you're the expert on your own body. You've been managing this for 22 years. He laughed. "I know, Grandma. Don't worry." But I did worry. Something in my gut wouldn't settle. They married in December, a small ceremony at the distillery district. Brooklyn looked stunning in a fitted white gown. Ethan looked thinner than I remembered from the engagement party just 2 months earlier, but he assured everyone he'd been training hard for a spring marathon. The trouble started subtly, the way these things always do. In January, Ethan missed our regular Sunday dinner. Brooklyn called to say he wasn't feeling well, had a low blood sugar episode earlier and needed to rest. I offered to come over with soup, but she insisted they were fine. The next week, same thing. And the week after that, by February, I'd only seen Ethan twice since the wedding. Both times, Brooklyn was glued to his side, answering questions before he could, finishing his sentences. When I asked about his endocrinologist appointment, Brooklyn interrupted. "We actually switched doctors," she said brightly. "Dr. Patel was so far from our new place. We found someone closer in Yorkville. Much more convenient." Ethan nodded but didn't meet my eyes. "Did Dr. Patel refer you?" I asked. Ethan had been seeing Dr. Patel for 8 years. She knew his medical history inside and out. "We didn't need a referral for a family doctor," Brooklyn said. "And honestly, Linda, I think a fresh perspective is good. Dr. Patel was a bit old-fashioned in her approach. This new doctor is very progressive." After they left, I called Dr. Patel's office. The receptionist confirmed what I suspected. "Ethan didn't request his medical records be transferred," she told me, "and he's missed his last 2 quarterly appointments. We've left messages, but no response. That night, I lay awake thinking about insulin. In my 40 years as a pharmacist, I'd seen the damage it could do in the wrong hands. Too little, and blood sugar spikes dangerously high. Too much, and blood sugar crashes into life-threatening lows. For someone like Ethan, who'd been managing his insulin for over 2 decades, suddenly missing appointments meant something was very wrong. I started watching more carefully. In March, I ran into Ethan at the Street Lawrence Market. He was alone, loading vegetables into reusable bags. I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost at least 20 pounds, his cheeks were hollow, and his hands shook slightly as he reached for tomatoes. "Ethan!" I hurried over, trying to hide my shock. He startled, nearly dropping the bag. "Grandma, hi, I didn't know you shopped here." "Every Saturday for the past 3 years," I said gently. "Are you feeling all right? You look thin." "I'm fine," he said quickly, too quickly. "Brooklyn has me on a new diet plan. She researched low-carb approaches for diabetics. It's working great. Low-carb diets can work for type 2 diabetics, but for type 1 diabetics on insulin, drastically cutting carbs requires very careful medication adjustment. Done wrong, it's dangerous." "Has your new doctor approved this diet?" I asked. "Brooklyn knows what she's doing," he said, but his voice wavered. "She's been incredible, actually. She manages all my medications now, keeps everything organized, sets alarms for my insulin doses. I used to forget sometimes, but she never does." Every alarm in my pharmacist brain started ringing. "Ethan," I said carefully, "you've been managing your own insulin since you were a child. Why would you need someone else to do it?" He looked at the tomatoes in his hands. "Brooklyn says I was being careless, that my A1C could be better. She wants me to be healthier, Grandma." "That's a good thing, right?" "Of course," I said, though my throat felt tight. "But you should always be in control of your own medications. That's basic patient autonomy." "I know," he said, but then he glanced at his phone and his expression changed. "I have to go. Brooklyn's expecting me home. She worries when I'm late." He left so quickly, he forgot his reusable bags on the vegetable counter. That evening, I called Rebecca. "Mom, I know you're worried," she said, "but Ethan's an adult. If he wants his wife to help with his diabetes management, that's his choice." "Rebecca, this isn't help. This is control, and it's medically dangerous." "You're being dramatic. Brooklyn loves Ethan. She's probably just trying to be a good wife." "A good wife doesn't take away her husband's autonomy over his own life-sustaining medications." "Mom," Rebecca's voice hardened, "I know you miss Ethan, but you can't manufacture a crisis because you're not seeing him as often. They're newlyweds. They want space." I wanted to argue, but what proof did I have? Just instinct and 40 years of professional experience watching medication management go wrong. In April, I got a call from Ethan's best friend since high school, Marcus Chen. "Mrs. Morrison, I hope it's okay that I'm calling," Marcus said. "I'm worried about Ethan." "Join the club," I said. "What happened?" "We were supposed to play hockey last weekend. Ethan texted that he couldn't make it because Brooklyn said no." Those were his exact words. "Brooklyn said no. Mrs. Morrison, we've played hockey together every month for 10 years. Why would his wife forbid him from playing hockey?" "Did you ask him?" I tried. He said Brooklyn thinks the physical exertion makes his blood sugar too unpredictable, that it's not safe. I closed my eyes. Ethan had been playing sports his entire life with diabetes. He knew how to adjust his insulin, how to carry glucose tabs, how to monitor his levels. Brooklyn's excuse made no medical sense. "Marcus, when you see Ethan, does he seem okay, physically?" There was a long pause. "He looks sick, Mrs. Morrison, really sick, thin, pale, and he seems scared all the time, like he's waiting for something bad to happen." After I hung up, I did something I'm not proud of. I drove to their condo building in Liberty Village and waited in my car across the street. I needed to see for myself. 2 hours later, Ethan emerged alone. He walked to the pharmacy 3 blocks away. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. I watched through the pharmacy window as he approached the counter. The conversation with the pharmacist seemed tense. Ethan kept looking at his phone. The pharmacist shook her head, showed him something on her computer screen. Ethan's shoulders slumped. When he left empty-handed, I went inside. "Excuse me," I said to the pharmacist, a young woman named Sarah, according to her name tag. "I'm a retired pharmacist. The man who just left, he's my grandson. Can you tell me what happened?" Sarah hesitated. "I can't discuss patient information." "I understand," I said, "but I'm very concerned about his safety. Is there anything you can tell me?" She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "He came to pick up his insulin prescription, but it was already picked up 3 days ago by someone named Brooklyn Hayes. He seemed confused, said he didn't know she'd gotten it. I checked our records, and she's been picking up all his medications for the past 2 months. Every refill she comes without him." My blood went cold. "Did he get the insulin today?" "No, it's too early for a refill. But here's what's weird. His prescription is for 2 vials per month, which is standard for his dosage. But she's been picking them up every 3 weeks instead of 4. I flagged it because it seemed like he might be using too much. Or someone else was controlling the supply." "Thank you," I whispered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about insulin, about hypoglycemia, about what can happen when someone deliberately gives too much. Confusion, seizures, unconsciousness, death, and it would look like a diabetic accident. No one would question it. I called Dr. Patel the next morning. "Linda, I'm glad you called," she said. "I've been trying to reach Ethan for months. His prescription refills through his old pharmacy just expired, and he never transferred them. I'm worried he's not getting proper care." "He's getting care," I said grimly. "Just not from a doctor." I explained everything. The weight loss, the missed appointments, the dietary changes, Brooklyn controlling his medications. Dr. Patel was silent for a long moment. "Linda, what you're describing sounds like medical abuse, possibly even attempted harm. If someone is manipulating his insulin doses, they could kill him." "I know," I said, "but I don't have proof, just suspicions." "Then we need to create an opportunity for proof," Dr. Patel said. "Can you get Ethan alone, even for an hour? I can see him as an emergency appointment, run a full panel, check his A1C, his liver function, everything." "I'll try," I said. But Brooklyn didn't let Ethan out of her sight. Every invitation I extended, she was there. Every phone call, she was listening. By October, I'd barely seen my grandson in 8 months. Then came November, and everything accelerated. Rebecca called me, crying. "Mom, Ethan's in the hospital, severe hypoglycemia. Brooklyn found him unconscious this morning." I was in my car before she finished the sentence. At St. Michael's Hospital, I found Brooklyn in the waiting room, surrounded by concerned colleagues from her real estate office. She was crying delicately into a tissue, accepting hugs. "It's just so scary," she was saying. "He's usually so careful with his insulin. I don't know what happened. Maybe he accidentally gave himself too much? Or forgot he'd already taken his morning dose?" I approached slowly. "Brooklyn." She looked up, her eyes red. "Linda. Oh, thank God you're here. This is just awful. Where is he?" "They're stabilizing him. The doctor said his blood sugar was 28 when the ambulance arrived, 28 milligrams per deciliter. Anything below 70 is considered low. Below 54 is dangerous. 28 could cause brain damage or death." "What happened this morning?" I asked carefully. "I don't know. I woke up and he wasn't in bed. I found him on the bathroom floor. His insulin pen was on the counter. I think he must have given himself his dose and then collapsed before he could eat breakfast. Every detail was wrong. Ethan would never take insulin without eating. He'd been managing this condition for 22 years. He wouldn't make a mistake like that, unless someone else had been controlling his insulin for so long that he'd lost the rhythm of his own care." A doctor emerged, a South Asian woman in her 40s. "Family of Ethan Morrison?" Brooklyn jumped up. "I'm his wife." "I'm his grandmother," I said. "I'm also a retired pharmacist. Can you tell us his condition?" The doctor looked between us. "He's stable now. We've brought his blood sugar back to a safe range, but I need to ask some questions. This is his 3rd emergency hypoglycemic episode in as many months." "3rd?" I stared at Brooklyn. "He's been in the hospital twice before?" Brooklyn's face flushed. "They were minor. I handled them at home with glucose tabs. The paramedics said it was fine." Paramedics came to your home twice, and you didn't tell the family? I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. I didn't want to worry everyone, Brooklyn said. Ethan was embarrassed. He's been having trouble managing his levels lately, the stress of work, you know. The doctor was watching Brooklyn with an expression I recognized. Suspicion. Mrs. Hayes, the doctor said, your husband's A1C level is 9.2. That's very high for someone who's supposedly having frequent low blood sugar episodes. Typically, we'd see a low A1C if someone was consistently hypoglycemic. A high A1C suggests poor control or insufficient insulin. Can you explain this discrepancy? Brooklyn blinked. I don't understand all the medical terms. Let me put it simply, I said. His average blood sugar is too high, but he keeps having dangerous lows. That pattern suggests someone is giving him large doses of insulin at irregular intervals, causing the lows but not managing his baseline diabetes properly, causing the overall high average. Brooklyn's eyes narrowed. Are you accusing me of something, Linda? I'm trying to understand how someone who's been successfully managing type 1 diabetes for 22 years suddenly can't remember to eat before taking insulin. Maybe you don't know your grandson as well as you think you do, Brooklyn snapped. He's not the perfect patient you imagine. He's careless, forgetful. I'm constantly having to remind him about his medications. Then why don't you let him see his regular endocrinologist? That's between Ethan and me. The doctor intervened. I'd like to keep Ethan overnight for observation, and I'm going to recommend he see an endocrinologist before discharge. Mrs. Hayes, I'll need a complete list of all medications and supplements he's taking. Brooklyn's jaw tightened, but she nodded. I stayed at the hospital all day. Brooklyn left around dinner time, saying she had a work event she couldn't miss. The moment she was gone, I went to Ethan's room. He was awake, looking pale and exhausted against the white pillows. Grandma, he said quietly, you don't have to stay. I'm fine. Ethan. I pulled a chair close to his bed. This is your third hypoglycemic emergency in 3 months. You haven't had an episode like this since you were 9 years old. What's happening? He stared at the IV in his arm. I don't know. I keep making mistakes with my insulin. You don't make mistakes with insulin. You've been doing this since you were 7. Brooklyn says, I've gotten careless, that I take too much or forget if I've already taken it. She's trying to help by managing it for me, but I still mess up. Ethan, look at me. I waited until his eyes met mine. Who actually administers your insulin? You or Brooklyn? He hesitated. Mostly Brooklyn now. She has my pens. She keeps them locked in a medication safe in her office at home. She says it's to prevent me from accidentally double dosing. My hands went cold. Locked up? You don't have access to your own life-sustaining medication? She gives it to me when it's time. She's very organized about it. What if she's not home? What if you need insulin and she's not there? She's always there, he said, but his voice cracked. Or if she's not, she comes back. She makes sure I'm okay. Ethan, that's not care. That's control. You don't understand, he said, and tears started sliding down his cheeks. I'm expensive, Grandma. The insulin, the test strips, the CGM sensors. Brooklyn pays for everything because my insurance doesn't cover it all. She has a right to make sure I'm not wasting money by being careless. You are not expensive. You have a medical condition. She took out a life insurance policy on me, he whispered. $2 million. She said it was smart financial planning in case something happens to me, but sometimes I wonder if she's waiting for something to happen. The room spun. Ethan, when did she take out this policy? 3 months after we got married, right before the first emergency. I stood up, my hands shaking. I'm calling the police. No. He tried to sit up, wincing. Grandma, no. You're wrong. Brooklyn wouldn't hurt me. She loves me. I'm just paranoid because I'm tired and scared, and I hate feeling like I can't trust my own body anymore. Your body is fine, sweetheart. It's the person controlling your medications who isn't trustworthy. Please don't call the police. Please. If you're wrong, I'll lose her. And I can't be alone again. The desperation in his voice broke my heart. This was what abuse did. It made you believe you deserved it, that you couldn't survive without your abuser. Okay, I said quietly. I won't call. Not yet, but I'm staying here tonight. Brooklyn won't like that. I don't particularly care what Brooklyn likes. He smiled weakly. There's my fierce grandma. I slept in the chair beside his bed. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Brooklyn. Linda, go home. You're not needed. I'll be there first thing in the morning. I didn't respond. At 6 a.m., a nurse came in to check Ethan's vitals. Oh good, you're both awake. I need to ask Mr. Morrison some questions about his medication history. Over the next hour, the full picture emerged. The nurse, a diabetes educator named Patricia, went through Ethan's insulin regimen with him. The doses Brooklyn had been giving him were erratic. Sometimes too much, sometimes too little. No consistent pattern. Mr. Morrison, Patricia said gently, this isn't safe insulin management. Whoever's been doing this doesn't understand how diabetes works. You need to take control of your own care again. I know, Ethan said. I know. But I don't know how anymore. Brooklyn's been doing it for so long, I feel like I've forgotten. It'll come back, Patricia assured him. Muscle memory. But you need to start now, while you're here where we can supervise. She left to get supplies. Ethan looked at me. Grandma, I think I'm in trouble. I know, sweetheart, but we're going to fix this. Brooklyn arrived at 8, carrying Starbucks and looking annoyed. Why are you still here, Linda? Making sure my grandson is safe. From what? The hospital staff? Don't be ridiculous. Dr. Sharma, the endocrinologist, arrived before Brooklyn could say more. She was all business. Mr. Morrison, I've reviewed your records. Your insulin management has been dangerous. We need to completely restart your care plan. That won't be necessary, Brooklyn interrupted. I manage his insulin. I have a system. Dr. Sharma looked at her coldly. Your system has resulted in 3 life-threatening emergencies. It ends now. You can't tell me how to take care of my husband. Actually, I can. I'm his physician, and if you continue to interfere with his medical care, I'll report you for medical abuse. Brooklyn's face went white, then red. This is outrageous. Linda's been poisoning you against me, hasn't she, Ethan? Filling your head with nonsense about me trying to hurt you. I never said you were trying to hurt him, I said quietly. But you are. Brooklyn grabbed her purse. I don't have to listen to this. Ethan, I'm leaving. When you're ready to come home and stop letting your grandmother run your life, call me. She stormed out. Ethan started crying. She's right. I'm being ungrateful. She's done everything for me, and I'm repaying her by believing conspiracy theories. Dr. Sharma sat on the edge of his bed. Mr. Morrison, in my 20 years as an endocrinologist, I've seen many cases of diabetes mismanagement. But what I saw in your records isn't mismanagement. It's a pattern. Someone who knows just enough to be dangerous, but not enough to keep you safe. Or someone who's being dangerous on purpose. But why would she want to hurt me? $2 million, I said quietly. That's why. Ethan was discharged the next day with a new insulin plan, his own prescription, and strict orders to manage his own medications. He came home with me to my condo in North York just for a few days, he said. Those few days turned into 2 weeks. Brooklyn called constantly, texted, showed up at my building. I didn't let her in. Ethan needs space to regain his confidence in managing his diabetes, I told her through the intercom. You can't keep me from my husband. I'm not keeping you from anyone. Ethan is free to contact you whenever he wants. He's choosing not to. That wasn't entirely true. Ethan wanted to call her. He reached for his phone 100 times a day. But each time, I'd ask him to check his blood sugar first, or eat something, or take a walk. Distraction until the urge passed. By early December, Ethan was managing his insulin independently again. His blood sugars were stable. He'd gained back 8 pounds. The fear in his eyes had started to fade. I think I need to file for divorce, he said one morning over coffee. I think that's wise, I said. I'm scared. I know. What if no one else ever wants me? What if Brooklyn was right that I'm too much work? Ethan, you are not too much work. You have a manageable medical condition. The right person will see that. The right person will support your autonomy, not take it away. He nodded, but I could see he didn't quite believe it yet. That afternoon, I got a call from a police detective named Jennifer Kwan. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm calling about your grandson, Ethan Morrison. We've received some concerning information about his wife, Brooklyn Hayes." "What kind of information?" "I can't disclose details, but we'd like to speak with Ethan. With his permission, of course." I handed Ethan the phone. Detective Kwan came to my condo the next day with a partner, Detective Luis Garcia. They were both in their 40s, professional and kind. "Mr. Morrison," Detective Kwan said, "we've been investigating Brooklyn Hayes for insurance fraud. 3 years ago, her previous fiancé died of a drug overdose. She was the beneficiary of his $800,000 life insurance policy. 2 years before that, her first husband died in a car accident, another $600,000 policy. Now, you're husband number 3, with a $2 million policy, and you've had 3 near-fatal medical emergencies in 4 months." Ethan's face went gray. "You think she's trying to kill me?" "We think there's a pattern worth investigating. With your permission, we'd like to examine your medical records, your insulin pens, anything Brooklyn had access to." "She threw out my old insulin pens," Ethan said. "She said they were expired, but I remember checking, they weren't. Do you know where she might have disposed of them?" "Probably still in the garbage chute room on our floor. Garbage day isn't until Friday." The detectives obtained a warrant. They recovered 4 insulin pens from the garbage, all of which had been tampered with. The concentration had been altered to deliver higher doses than indicated. An expert toxicologist confirmed that anyone using those pens, according to standard dosing, would receive double or triple the intended insulin, resulting in severe hypoglycemia. Brooklyn was arrested on December 20th. Attempted murder, insurance fraud, medical abuse. She made bail the next day. I increased security at my building. On New Year's Eve, I was hosting a small party. Just Rebecca, her husband Tom, Ethan, Marcus, and a few close friends. Nothing fancy. Champagne, appetizers, the Toronto fireworks on TV. At 2 p.m., Ethan realized he'd left his jacket at his condo, the condo he'd been too afraid to return to since leaving the hospital. "I'll go with you," I offered. "No, Grandma. Stay with your guests. I'll be quick, in and out." "Ethan, I don't think that's safe. Brooklyn's out on bail, but she's not allowed anywhere near the building. There's a restraining order. I'll be fine." He left. 15 minutes passed. 30. 45. I called his cell. No answer. "Rebecca, I'm going to Ethan's condo," I said, grabbing my coat. "Mom, you're being paranoid." But something in my gut screamed that I wasn't. I drove to Liberty Village faster than I should have, let myself into his building with the spare key he'd given me, took the elevator to the 14th floor. His condo door was unlocked. I pushed it open. "Ethan?" No answer. I walked through the living room. Everything looked normal, neat. Brooklyn had always been meticulous. Then I heard it, a faint alarm beeping from the bathroom. I ran. Ethan was on the bathroom floor, unconscious. His continuous glucose monitor was screaming. I looked at the display. Critical low. 31. On the counter, I saw an empty insulin pen. Brooklyn's distinctive handwriting on a sticky note. "Thought you might need this. Love, B." Through the heating vent, I could hear music and laughter from the unit below. Someone was hosting a New Year's party. My grandson was dying, and people were celebrating right beneath him. I rolled Ethan into the recovery position, grabbed my phone, and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? 29-year-old male, type 1 diabetic, severe hypoglycemia, blood sugar 31, unconscious, unresponsive. Ambulance is on the way. Are you trained to help? I'm a retired pharmacist. I need glucagon. I tore through the bathroom cabinets, found the glucagon emergency kit Brooklyn had insisted they keep, broke the seal, mixed the powder with the solution, drew it up, injected it into Ethan's thigh. "Come on, baby," I whispered. "Come on." 60 seconds. 90. 2 minutes. His eyelids fluttered. "Grandma? I'm here. Stay with me." The paramedics arrived 6 minutes later. They started an IV, pushed glucose, got his blood sugar back above 60. "What happened?" the lead paramedic asked. I picked up the insulin pen and the sticky note with gloved hands from my purse. She did this intentionally. At the hospital, Detective Kwan met us. I gave her the pen and the note. She violated her restraining order, I said. She broke into his condo and left him a lethal dose of insulin. We'll get her, Detective Kwan promised. Brooklyn was arrested again that night. This time, bail was denied. The evidence was overwhelming. The tampered insulin pens, the pattern of dead partners, the $2 million insurance policy taken out just before the emergencies began, text messages recovered from her phone to her mother. Just a few more months and I'll have enough to retire early. The trial was in March. Ethan testified about the control, the isolation, the fear. I testified about the medical abuse. Dr. Sharma testified about the dangerous insulin management. Detective Kwan presented the evidence of Brooklyn's previous partners' deaths. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: attempted murder, insurance fraud, criminal harassment. The judge gave her 18 years. As they led Brooklyn out of the courtroom, she looked at Ethan. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "You were supposed to die quietly, like the others." Ethan didn't flinch. He just looked at her with something like pity. "I hope you get help," he said quietly. "I really do." The trial was covered extensively in the Toronto news. Black Widow of Liberty Village, they called her. The stories prompted 2 other families to come forward about suspicious deaths of their relatives who'd been involved with Brooklyn. But for Ethan and me, the real work was just beginning. Ethan spent months in therapy, working through the trauma of realizing someone he loved had been systematically trying to kill him. He joined a support group for abuse survivors. He reconnected with his endocrinologist. He slowly rebuilt his confidence in managing his own health. 6 months after the trial, he came to me with an idea. "Grandma, I want to start something. A support network for people with chronic illnesses who are in abusive relationships. Because no one talks about how medical conditions make you vulnerable, how abusers use your medications as weapons, how isolation is easier when you already feel like a burden." We called it the Insulin and Impact Project. Dr. Sharma signed on as medical advisor. Detective Kwan helped us develop safety protocols. Marcus volunteered to run the peer support groups. We started with 1 meeting in the community room of my condo building. 8 people showed up: diabetics, epileptics, asthmatics, people with heart conditions, all of them with stories of partners or family members who'd weaponized their medical needs. By the end of the year, we had 53 members and had expanded to 3 different locations across the GTA. Ethan found his purpose. More than that, he found himself again. And then he found Priya. She was a social worker who volunteered with our project. She had type 1 diabetes too, diagnosed at 15. Their first conversation was about the best CGM systems. Their first date was a walk around High Park, both of them checking their blood sugars and laughing about it. Their engagement wasn't rushed. They dated for 2 years. Priya met our whole family, became part of our Sunday dinners. She understood boundaries, respected autonomy, celebrated Ethan's independence. When Ethan asked me for my blessing to propose, I cried. "She's perfect for you," I said. "She sees you, not your diabetes." The wedding was in June, in my daughter's garden in Mississauga. Small, intimate, full of love. Dr. Sharma was there. Detective Kwan and her wife came. Marcus was the best man. The entire Insulin and Impact Project community showed up to celebrate. During his vows, Ethan said something that made everyone tear up. "Priya, you taught me that love doesn't control, love doesn't isolate, love doesn't weaponize vulnerability. Love supports, love empowers, love sees strength where others see weakness. Thank you for loving me the right way." At the reception, I stood with Rebecca, watching Ethan and Priya dance. "You saved his life, Mom," Rebecca said quietly. "If you hadn't been paying attention, if you hadn't followed your instincts." "We saved his life," I corrected, "all of us. The doctors, the detectives, Marcus, and mostly Ethan saved himself by finding the courage to leave." "Do you think he's really okay now?" I watched my grandson, healthy and happy, spinning his wife around the makeshift dance floor. "I think he's better than okay. I think he's exactly where he's supposed to be. Later that evening, as guests were leaving, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 25, thin and nervous. "Mrs. Morrison? I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Aisha. I have Crohn's disease, and my boyfriend, he controls my medications. He says it's because I'm not responsible enough. But I saw your grandson's story on the news, and I wondered if maybe you're not alone," I said, taking her hand, "and you're not irresponsible. Come to our next meeting. We'll help you." She started crying. "Thank you." As I watched her walk away, I thought about that New Year's Eve, about finding Ethan on the bathroom floor, about those 4 words I'd said to the paramedics. She did this intentionally. 4 words that sparked an investigation, 4 words that saved my grandson's life, 4 words that led to justice for Brooklyn's previous victims, 4 words that inspired us to create something that helps others. Sometimes I think about Brooklyn, sitting in prison, and I wonder if she understands what she lost. Not the money or the freedom, but the opportunity to love someone real and flawed and wonderful just as they were. The snow has melted now. Another summer in Toronto, humid and bright. The Insulin and Impact Project is expanding to Ottawa and Montreal. Ethan is training to become a diabetes educator. Priya is pregnant with their first child, and they're already prepared with a pediatric endocrinologist on standby, just in case. But mostly, I think about the lesson in all of this. The lesson I share every time I speak at one of our meetings, every time someone new walks in looking scared and alone. Medical conditions don't make you a burden, they make you human. And anyone who uses your humanity against you doesn't love you. They control you. Real love supports your independence. Real love respects your autonomy. Real love never, ever weaponizes the very things keeping you alive. Everyone with a chronic illness deserves a partner who sees their strength, not just their limitations, who celebrates their resilience, not just their vulnerability, who stands beside them as an equal, not above them as a caretaker who resents the care. My grandson almost died learning that lesson, but he lived to teach it to others, and that, perhaps, is the greatest redemption of all. If you're reading this and something feels wrong in your relationship, trust that feeling. Trust your instincts. Trust that you deserve better. Trust that there are people like Dr. Sharma and Detective Kwan and Marcus and me, people who will believe you, who will help you, who will stand with you when you're ready to walk away. And trust that on the other side of that fear, there's a life waiting. A life where you're in control of your own body, your own choices, your own future. A life where you're valued not despite your medical needs, but simply because you exist and you matter. The light always returns after the storm. Sometimes you just need someone to help you find the window.